Inside of the GV80, you're going to find a 2.5 liter engine or a 3.5 liter engine, but inside of the Coupe, it's a 3.5 liter supercharged engine instead. Combined horsepower and torque is an impressive 409 horsepower and 405 pound-feet of torque. Pretty wild. So I'm going to put myself into sport mode here and have to get back up to highway speed. I'm going to utilize the paddle shifters in 3, 2, and 100. Oh, that's nice. But if you're the type of person where you absolutely love power inside of your rides, that is really solid performance there. If you're looking for a GV80 that can just get you from A to B, the regular 2.5 liter engine is a good choice. The 3.5 is definitely going to have a noticeable difference, and then this one is going to have an even bigger difference compared to the regular 3.5 instead. But either way, regardless of the engine, you're not going to be disappointed. Looking at the warranty inside of the Genesis lineup, it's actually really solid. The basic and powertrain in Canada are 5-year, 100,000 kilometer. In the States, the basic is a 5-year, 60,000 mile, with the powertrain getting bumped up to an impressive 10-year, 100,000 mile instead. I'd love to see a 10-year powertrain warranty in Canada, but if you need that added peace of mind, you can always increase your warranty at time of purchase. You just want to make sure, take it in for regular maintenance, regular oil changes to protect the car that you're purchasing, because the last thing you want is to not perform maintenance, have something go wrong, and you can't use your warranty anymore. So just take care of this ride, it'll take care of you. Pricing for the GV80 is slightly more expensive year over year. So starting price point in Canada is a little over $76,000 versus a little over $60,000 down in the US. And that's going to depend on how you have it configured. Have you gone for one of the entry-level advanced trim levels, or are you in the fully loaded GV80 Coupe with the 3.5 liter supercharged engine instead? That's going to dictate how much you end up paying for your ride. This one is the Coupe version, which means it's the most expensive option. It's also in the Makalu gray exterior, which has a premium price point. You're only going to find the GV80 available all-wheel drive, which if you're in Canada like me, or if you're in northern states where you're going to get snow a couple months out of the year, having all-wheel drive is so much better than rocking front wheel or rear wheel drive in the wintertime. But all-wheel drive is obviously going to have a premium price point. You're going to find a series of different wheel styles and sizes available, with 19s being in the entry-level trim versus 22-inch when you're looking at the higher trims of the ride. And the 22-inch wheel looks really good, that split spoke style. Typically, I'm a fan of blacked out wheels, but there's just something about the style here, the way that they've done this matte gray finish on the wheel. It looks really sharp, and that blacked out Jenny caliper looks great. The front end style of the GV80 is absolutely stunning. I love the way that Genesis has designed it. All the rounded elements look fantastic. And then even when you get to the lower part of the bumper, all of the gloss black highlights really shine. The LED headlamps inside of the GV80 look great, and there's a lot of standard technology you're going to find inside of this ride as well. So most trim levels are going to have the forward sensing system along with a front-facing camera. You're going to find the GV80 with a regular body style, or it's the Coupe, which is where you get that slanted rear end. But the overall size of the ride is great. In the Coupe, you're only looking at 5 seats maximum versus the available 7 seats when you get into the regular body style instead. Getting inside of the ride, straightforward. Ooh. Plenty spacious. And one nice thing is that there are assist handles. Oh yeah. Easy enough getting in and out of that ride. See there? The GV80 has lights along the side. The side view mirrors are power folding. There's also a camera built in. It's got a blind spot monitoring system, and they're auto dimming. It's got intelligent access, so as long as you've got the fob on you, you can push there to lock the doors. Slide your hand in order to unlock. Oh, I love this interior. But before we get there, along the door, you get this nice carbon fiber highlight that wraps through the dash and through the center stack there. There's driver's seat memory inside the ride. This one has the upgraded audio system, but across the board, you're going to see all of the buttons here are the same. So you've got your side view mirror controls, window controls, kill off power to those rear windows and doors, along with some storage. Get this nice stitching that follows all the way throughout the seat. Works beautifully with these red seat belts. And there are a few different types of leather seats you're going to find inside of the ride. This is the coupe version, which means it's a Napa leather, power adjustable seats. You can adjust the individual leg cushions. There's multi-way lumbar support. They all option for massage chair seats as well. You've got basics here, so controlling the brightness of the cluster screen, downhill brake control. You've also got your traction control, open up the trunk with an electronic parking brake, and power adjustable steering wheel. These are the rubber trays that you're going to find from the factory. I definitely recommend getting these ones. It's so much easier to clean them off in comparison to the regular carpeted mats. Taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Genesis GV80. Well, this is the coupe version of the ride, but it's going to be the same across the board. The first thing I'm going to point out is that the steering wheel inside of the ride is going to be heated. So just down the center stack there, there are two different options that are available for the heated steering wheel, and it's heated all the way around. It's also going to be a power telescoping steering wheel. So down by your left knee there, you've got the flexibility of moving it in, out, up, and down to find that perfect position for you. Once you do, release, and you're set to go. There's also going to be memory, so you can get your steering wheel set up the way that you'd like to. You're going to get your driver's seat set up the way that you'd like to, your side view mirror set up the way that you'd like to, and then you can hit set in either 1 or 2 for it to remember your own personal profile. So if there are multiple people that are driving the vehicle, it's really straightforward setting that up. Then so many things that you need to know. Stick on the left-hand side is going to be for your lights. So you've got your light off mode, auto mode, and then your always on mode. Now, one thing is that when you're in the auto mode, you can't permanently lock your high beams out. It puts you into an auto mode there instead. And what that means is that if the vehicle recognizes high beams are needed, it's automatically going to turn them on. If somebody's oncoming, it's going to dim them before turning them right back on again. You can flash your high beams out, but if you want to permanently lock out your high beams, you have to go into the upper light mode, push away to turn them on, pull towards you in order to turn them off instead. So it's really straightforward from that perspective. You've also got your blinker, and then there's the blind spot view monitor. So if somebody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle, you can see there. So it's going to show you in your side view mirror. So you'll have your blind spot monitor there. So that's going to highlight red, but inside of the screen there, when you hit your turn stock, it's going to also show you there. It's really neat. The default for the flashes here is 3, but through the infotainment system, you can set it to 1, 3, 5, or 7 flashes instead. Stick on the right-hand side is going to be for your wipers. So button push down, or I should say drop down once in order to go into just a single white mode. And then you can go into other options instead. In the auto mode, you could then adjust this way in order to adjust the speed. And then you can also turn on your wiper fluid by pulling towards you in order to get that wiper fluid going. The coupe version of the ride does not have a rear windshield wiper. Then you've also got paddle shifters inside of the ride. So you've got your minus on the left-hand side, plus on the right-hand side. If you've never used paddle shifters before, it's a very straightforward process. You can drop down gears this way in order to increase your speed, in order to get a speed boost. And you can also rely on engine braking this way instead. But if you've never used paddle shifters before and you want a deeper explanation of how they work, check down in the description below for a walkthrough on how that's done. But it's relatively straightforward. Down the center stack, there's also an option that you can choose between in order to get to different drive modes. There's an eco mode, a comfort mode, and 2 different sport modes, and then a unique custom My mode instead, where you can essentially, through the infotainment system, figure out what that mode does. But it's really neat. So eco is going to give you the best economy. Comfort is more like your normal driving. Sport is going to give you the best tuned suspension, stiffen up your steering wheel, better throttle response as well. So rather than it shifting at maybe, let's say, like 3,000 RPM, it might shift at 4,000 or 5,000 RPM instead. So it gives you a much sportier performance. And then you've also got your Sport Plus, which toggles off traction control and also lets you do a little bit of a launch control as well, which is kind of cool. In order to use the launch control in the Sport Plus mode, just hit the brake, and then hit the accelerator at the same time, and then all you're going to do is launch. You let go of the brake and go. It's relatively straightforward to do, but it's neat. And then you've got your basic drive modes, and then there are terrain modes, so snow, mud, or sand mode instead. Each of these modes are going to do something different. So it's going to play with your traction control, stability control, and things like that in order to give you better performance overall, just depending on the driving conditions. And then there are so many different buttons. So the one on the left-hand side here, so the ones on the outside, these are going to be for your adaptive cruise control system. So you can toggle the system on there. It says conditions not met because I'm parked. But as I go to drive, you can then hit, and that's going to essentially turn it on and set it at your current speed. So let's say if you're driving at 45 kilometers an hour, you turn it on, it's going to hold you at 45. And then you can increase or decrease 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time. You can push and hold up to get to the nearest zero, push and hold down to get to the nearest zero. So if you're at 45, it'll bring you to 50, then 60, then 70, and then down, it'll bring you to 40, then 30, etc. You can hit there in order to pause your speed. You can hit the brake to pause your speed, and then you can push in again to resume your previously set speed. And then there's a distance indicator, so it's how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you. I want you to think of that almost like a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi type of a rule for how far away you are from the car in front of you. So if you want to actually see the system used in person though, check down in the description of this video. The other one I'm going to point out is going to be the lane follow assist. So the system itself works incredibly well. So what happens here is, as long as the vehicle recognizes the lane markings, it's going to keep you perfectly balanced in your lane. So even if you have your hands off the steering wheel for a second, it's going to keep you nice and balanced. It's a really, really good system. Not full self-driving, so you do eventually have to put your hands back on the steering wheel, but it's still really neat at the same time. So I always recommend keeping that one turned on. And then one thing about the cruise control is that it's strictly adaptive cruise. So there's no way that you can use a regular cruise control system inside of this ride. It's the only downside. From here, you've got a little pages button, and that's going to let you choose between a few unique looks. So there are different options here. But then you'll notice that you've also got the flexibility of moving up and down to different trip counters this way instead. So pages button here, you could also push in, and that's going to let you change between a few unique looks, where you can adjust out the widget along the side by moving this way, so left versus right, so you can change between your songs there. Push OK in order to adjust out your individual widgets. So if you wanted to do a turn-by-turn direction list, you'd have that available. If you want a compass view, you can swipe across in order to change out your different power views and things like that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll kind of show you how these ones actually go as we move in. You've also got a custom button here. So pushing that is going to give you the flexibility of doing things. So do you want to cancel your route out? Do you want to go home? Whatever the case may be. There's another custom button on the outside here, and same idea. What do you want that one to do? So you can kind of customize these buttons and make them your own. There's a voice command prompt. 97.7 FM. So you'll be able to do things like change songs, radio stations, navigate using your voice, make phone calls. You can adjust your climate and a number of other things. So it's straightforward to do. If you've got your phone hooked up over Android or iPhone, so or I should say Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, you could do a longer push and hold instead, and that's going to activate. That'll activate either your Google or your Siri Assistant instead. There's a volume rocker here. You can push in the middle in order to mute. You can answer or hang up on a phone call. And then there's this swap button as well. And this one is going to let you change between all of your selected sources. So if we hop back in here for a second, there's also the mode button on the steering wheel. And anything that's selected there, you can choose between or move between. So if you had sounds of nature that you like listening to, your Bluetooth audio, things like that, as you move through, it's going to give you the flexibility of adjusting through all of those different options instead. It's really neat. So let's zoom in and I'll show you a few other things about the cluster screen. So you've got your tachometer, speedometer duo there. If you hit the pages button here, so push in, that's going to change you out to a traditional view. As you move between your different drive modes, you'll see that it's also going to tweak out the look inside of the cluster as well. In the infotainment system, you would have the flexibility of changing out your setup view, so your cluster display. You'd have the option of linking out your drive modes. So do you want it to link out to whatever drive mode that you're in? But let's say if you love the look of the sport mode, you could lock it in one way or the other. So if you love the look of the sport mode, but you love the benefits of the eco driving, you'd have that flexibility. You can adjust what content's showing up there as well. So do you want to get your blind spot view monitor, yay, nay, icy road warning, and things like that. So there are different options available there. So I'm personally a bigger fan of this setup, but that's going to come down to a matter of personal preference. You can see the gear that you're currently in, so whether that's park, reverse. Yep. Reverse, you can see we've got the forward reverse sensing system, side sensing systems there. Pop into neutral versus drive. So straightforward there. But you can see what's going on all around you. You can see what drive mode that you're currently in, what your current fuel level is this way, and then the number of kilometers till empty. Along the bottom right side is going to be your total odometer as well. And then you've got what's going on with your current page. So if we move up and down this way, you can see that it moves us between a couple of unique views. So you've got different options here. You could also then push and hold in order to get to a bunch of different driving convenience settings. So you'd be able to do things like adjust your driver's safety, speed limit assist, you get warning signs, speed limit signs, and things like that. You've got different views available. So this one's your driving assistance view. So with the adaptive cruise control system turned on, if it recognizes the lane markings, you'll notice those go green. If there are cars in front of you, beside you, etc., and your blind spot on either side, it would show you there as well. Then you've just got different looks. So it's going to be a matter of preference there. You can kind of do this little split screen look instead. And when you do, you've got a widgetized area there. And that's where this little guy comes into play. So you could hit this if you wanted to then adjust out your widget. So you've got your current trip counters, and there are a few different counters there. So you've got your current trip. So that's from when the vehicle was last turned on for that trip counter. You've got your since refueling. So since you filled up the tank, how far have you driven? And then since your last reset. So if you've done a manual reset, so you're just going to go OK twice, and that's going to let you reset those counters instead. So anything with that OK twice on there, you just double push in order to reset it instead. So you've got different options there. Do you want to have your trip counter? Do you want to have sounds of nature on there instead? A compass view? And actually that's kind of neat. So if we have an active route going, so I'm just going to set up a route quickly here.
The route guidance will start now.
Okay. So you can see there.
Slight right and then turn left.
You've got your mapping cluster here, and then you can also see a few different views this way instead if you'd like to. So you've got more or less like your turn-by-turn directions there, just done slightly differently. You can see your power, so which wheel is getting which amount of power. You can see your tire pressure as you go to drive, your auto start-stop system, and things like that. So you've got the flexibility to customize this a little bit, just based off of your own personal preference. And then if you wanted to, you could kind of change to like a bigger mapping cluster instead, and different options there. So it's kind of neat. Like there's a lot of information here. I like how you can kind of customize things. And one other thing to point out is that there's also a head-up display. So when you've got a route going, you can see there you turn-by-turn directions. If you had the cruise control system turned on, you'd also be able to see that with the lane keeping system or centering system turned on, off, etc. If you were to cancel the route, you could see it go away. And then through the infotainment system, you'd also have the flexibility of being able to adjust this out as well. So if you wanted to, you'd be able to tweak out your vehicle settings and head-up display. You can completely disable it if you want to. You can display what's in there. So you could also adjust the height. So if you want to make it higher or lower, you've got the flexibility to do it. You can adjust the rotation if you tend to sit one way or the other, adjust the brightness, what content do you want showing up, so your turn-by-turn directions, blind spot information, and things like that. So there are a lot of ways that you'd be able to customize this head-up display in order to make it your own as well. But with the driver's seat, there we go, as far down as it's going to go, up overhead with me sitting fully upright, I've got 4 inches of headspace there. I'm 6 feet tall for reference, so there's a bunch of space inside of this ride. Taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Genesis GV80. You might see me swiping across the screen this way, or you might see the screen moving without me touching it. And that's because I'm using the dial down the center stack in order to be able to move around. So there are a few different ways that you can navigate through this screen. But what I want you to think of is this half of the screen is the infotainment system. This half of the screen is going to be the traditional cluster screen instead. So let's dive in and I'll show you what you need to know. You've got your current time. You can hit this icon in order to either adjust your user profile, so your individual profile, or you can change users. The big benefit here is that if there are multiple people driving the ride, you'd be able to have it remember your individual profile settings for your radio. You'd be able to have it remember your phone settings, any addresses that you've previously searched for, and so many other things. So if multiple people are driving, you absolutely want to go that route, and you can even use a profile lock as well. So whether that's a fingerprint or password, but you'll be able to lock out your profile so that people can't look through. The fingerprint one is interesting because there's this little guy right down the middle, and that would be your fingerprint scanner. So you could essentially scan your fingerprint there in order to log into your profile that way. User profiles are straightforward. You've got your basic home button there, and then this one is going to let you either turn the display off, you can reorder the home icons, or look at device connections. So where this comes into play, specifically on reordering, is that if you wanted to adjust this out, you're just going to do a push and hold, and then you can slide these across if you wanted to customize the layout instead. Matter of preference. You've got your current day, along with your current connection level, and whether or not there's a phone on the wireless charge pad. So we take that off, you'll see the icon disappear there, back on, and it'll pop on again. Let's go through line by line, and I'll show you everything you need to know. So you've got this is like your regular home screen, I would say, and then you've got your icon view. Factory navigation is available inside of this ride, and from here with Factory Nav, you can hit this little icon in order to cancel route, look at destinations and things like that. You can search for addresses this way, so you'd be able to search by GPS coordinates, so latitude first, longitude second. You can search for point of interest icons. So if you wanted to look for something like a Tim Hortons, a Starbucks, gas station, whatever the case may be, you'd have the flexibility to do it. I'm just going to select one that's a little bit further away. And from here, if your phone was connected, you'd be able to call them. You could then route. So you're just going to hit route there. And you've got a few different options. So if there were multiple routes in order to get to where you wanted to go, you'd have different options available there. You can add in an additional stop. So you have this as your end destination, and then you can also add in a waypoint. So if you wanted to kind of stop somewhere in between, you can just add in multiple points there instead. Hitting done, you can then add in a stop, or
The route guidance will start now.
click through in
Turn
order to get to
slight
your
right
route.
and then turn left.
So you've got the option of showing your map a few different ways. You can show simple versus detailed turn-by-turn directions and things like that as well. It's kind of neat the way that Genesis has done this. You can then hit this button if you wanted to be able to cancel your route guidance. Along the very bottom, you can change your heading. So if you wanted to be north up, 2D, 3D, wide, etc., you've got different options that are available there. You could have it auto zoom in and out for your guidance.
Is at this volume.
Do you want to get guidance alerts? Yes. So turn-by-turn directions. Do you want to get an alert? So this one would be turning in 50 meters versus a chime, letting you know to turn. And then there's also volume priority, which is going to lower your other volumes when you've got an upcoming turn. From here, if we hit search again, we've searched for a few addresses. So you can see the addresses that you've previously searched for. You can also add in a home or work address. And the benefit there, you can hit the voice command prompt on the steering wheel and say navigate home, go to work, whatever the case may be, and it'll navigate to whatever addresses you have saved there. It's really straightforward using navigation. But yeah, you can see their point of interest icons, searching your GPS coordinates, things like that. Destination is also available there, so you can see previous destinations, point of interest icons, saved places, etc. And then one other thing is that inside of your maps when you're there, you hit this little guy in order to get to a bunch of other options, including some navigation settings. There's a lot of info here, like do you want to show your vehicle speed inside of the map? Do you want to display traffic information, point of interest icons? Do you want to avoid certain things on the route? Like do you want to avoid freeways, ferries, toll roads, HOV lanes, and things like that? Nothing overly exciting there. You can get alerts for your camera distance. So with that enabled, if the vehicle recognizes that there's a red light camera, it can give you a little chime and give you a heads up. You can change up your map mode. So whether that's the 2D, 3D, you can change up the theme if you wanted something different. You can change up the font size if you need it easier to read. And then auto scale means it's going to zoom in and out as you get closer to your destination. You could look for previous destinations and you can save them or disable this one, and then it won't save your previously searched for addresses. So you've got that available as an option. And then your GPS information. So if you've gone somewhere, your vehicle's broken down, you need to give somebody your GPS coordinates, you can go there in order to get that information. From here, you've got phone projection, and as of right now, no phones are connected. So we're going to start off on the Apple side of things. So we're just going to go add new.
Turn Bluetooth on in your mobile device in order to search. On your device,
There we go.
select the name that matches vehicle name on the screen.
Waiting for GV80 to show up, and the PIN numbers match up. So we're going to pair there. Do you want to allow contacts and favorites to sync up? This is not my car, so I'm going to say no to that one. And a few seconds in, and there we go. We are now fully
Download
connected.
was unsuccessful.
Now, it said unsuccessful
to
there because I said no when I first connected the phone, but we are now connected for Bluetooth. So you can stop here if you wanted to make phone calls and then stream audio that way. But one nice thing is that the screen does have support for Apple CarPlay. And then on your phone, it's wireless. You could connect wirelessly if you want to. It is also backwards compatible. So if you wanted to use a USB cable, you'd also have that flexibility. But we're just going to hit use CarPlay, and So yes there. And it'll take a second in order to actually connect. There we go. And here we go. We are now fully connected. This is going to be your Apple CarPlay. I want to say this is more like the icon view. This is going to be the home screen instead. So you've got your current time, your connection level, battery level, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was open last. You've got your icon view back to your home screen. Now this home screen is going to be dynamic to a degree. So you've got your current map, so whatever was open last, their search box, as well as whatever music or audio you're listening to. If you've got a calendar notification happening today, then that's also going to show up there. But if there was no calendar notification coming up, it would essentially just be your search box and then your audio box there instead. You've got Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze that you can use right through the screen. So if you don't want to use factory navigation, there are different options available. My go-to is always Waze. I love the app. And a big reason why, because as you start to drive, you'll notice not only traffic, but if there are accidents, those are marked off. If there are police pulling people over, people are good at marking that off as well. And you can mark things off yourself. So if you notice that there's cops pulling people over, if there are hazards on the road, if there are crashes and things like that. So it's a matter of preference, but there are so many apps available. You've got Hoopla, which is a library app. Live One is a radio app. You can listen to podcasts here instead. So there are a lot of different options available, including the option of adjusting this out. So if you're not a huge fan of the look, you can adjust the wallpaper. You can adjust the overall appearance. So do you want to be in the dark mode? You can have it driving focused and things like that. When you're connected to your phone, you can do a little button press on the steering wheel in order to launch into your car assistant. But if you do a long push and hold, that's going to activate your phone assistant instead. So a short button push is going to be for the assistant for the actual infotainment screen. Long push and hold is your phone assistant instead. And then you've got the flexibility of being able to adjust the icons. So on the phone, you're just going to go to your settings, general, and then CarPlay. From here, you're going to find your vehicle. You can forget it. There's enhanced integration. And then you've got the flexibility of customizing. So let's say if you wanted to have your podcast at the top, and if you're a fan of Waze, you'd be able to adjust this out. Anything with a minus next to it, you can remove it from the screen. And it fully removes it there, but it saves it at the bottom. So you could add it back in if you wanted to. But if you've played around with the layout too much and you're not a fan of what you've done on the device, you can hit reset, in order to bring you back to the factory default screen there instead. So it's straightforward. If you hit home, you could then jump back in to Apple CarPlay this way. But if you go into your setup, device connections, you've got the phone that we've connected. So we're connected over CarPlay. If you wanted to, you could then hit this. And what it's doing, it's disconnecting from CarPlay and reconnecting to Bluetooth instead. And you can see there, we're now fully connected. But that's how you set up Apple devices inside of the GV80. Setting up Android devices is the exact same process. So if you weren't on the screen, you could go into phone, but I'm currently connected to the iPhone there. So what we're going to do is device connections and then just hit add.
Turn Bluetooth on in your mobile device in order to search. On your device, select the name that matches vehicle name on the screen.
There we go. And we're just waiting for this basic screen to show up, and we're just going to go connect. And you want to sync your contacts up. I'm going to hit skip there. So I don't want my contacts and my messages and things like that syncing up. But I mean, obviously, if this was your car, you could hit yes there. And again, you could stop here. You're connected over Bluetooth and the device is now connected. But if you wanted to, you can also connect to Android Auto. So yes, we definitely want to do that. And same idea, it's backwards compatible. So you do have the flexibility of using USB instead if you'd like to. And we're connected to Android Auto. You could then open. Let's go home and jump into Android Auto here. And look at this. We are fully connected to Android Auto as well. So
download was unsuccessful. Would you like to try again?
All right, here we go.
If you continue having issues, please contact Genesis Customer Experience to review your Bluetooth issue with a specialist. Contact 1-866-999-9895.
Well, that's annoying. All right, so on the Android Auto side of things, you've got your little split screen here where you could swipe across if you wanted to get to other options here as well. You've got your map, and then you can hit the map icon in order to go full screen, and it's moved around, pinch to zoom. And that's something that's not available on the Apple CarPlay side of things, but still, it's nice you've got this available. You can search for addresses, hit the gear icon to do a satellite view versus your traditional view. You can avoid things on the route like highways, toll roads, ferries, things like that. Mute out notifications, change up your heading, add in obstacles on the route. You've got your built-in assistant there as well, and same idea. A long button push and hold is going to let you launch into your phone assistant instead. So short button push would still be for the vehicle assistant. Long button push is for this assistant instead. And you can see here, you go to your little split screen to an icon view, back to a split screen instead. Now you'll notice here Waze is installed, but if you've got Waze on your Android device and it's not showing up, check down in the description of this video for a little walkthrough on how to set that up properly. But you'd have the flexibility of being able to customize the layout for these icons. In order to do it, on your phone, you're just going to search for Android Auto. You're going to go into Android Auto settings, and you've got a boatload of options. But we're looking for Customize Launcher. And then similar to the iPhone side, you can just do a drag and drop in order to move these icons around into whatever option you'd like. Anything with a check mark next to it, you can deselect it, or you can add these things back in. But it's not dynamic the same way it was on the iPhone side. So in order for these changes to come into effect, you just need to hop home, go into your setup, device connections. You're going to disconnect from Android Auto. You're going to reconnect to Android Auto. Let's open it up and icon view. See here, the changes that we made have now come into effect. So not dynamic, but still easy enough to do. And then if we hop back into phones for a second, device connections, you've got both phones that have been connected. So you can either be hooked up to Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, not both. But if you have one phone that you want to connect for your phone calls and one phone for media, you could do that. So you can do a mix and match here. So it's either one of these, but both of these. And if you've got multiple phones connected, you could also do a drag and drop to see who gets connection priority. So if both phones are in the vehicle, who's it going to connect to first? And then if you wanted to delete devices, you're just going to go delete, mark, delete, and yes. And there we go. And it's that easy setting up Android and iPhone devices inside of the GV80. On this screen, the only other one that's really important, like there's basic information, but your Bluetooth system info is where you're going to change the vehicle name. So if you're not a fan of it being GV80, you want it to be Bob's Ride, Sally's Ride, whatever the case may be, that's where you're going in order to change out the vehicle name. From here, there's user profile information, but this is all part of our setup, which we'll touch on last. So we've got the setup there. 3D setup is going to be every option, but it's just done differently. So you can kind of see this neat little 360 view as you move around the vehicle. And then it's going to show you different things that you can do, including hopping inside in order to get to different options inside too. So it's just a very different way to be able to get to all of these setup options. You've got voice memos available, so you can record memos directly to the vehicle. You've got your radio here too. So let's dive into the radio. So you've got the option for FM, AM, and then SiriusXM. So you can see there, anything right here with the star next to it. So if we were to look at a list, you can see all of the available stations based off of your geographic area. You can save out presets by hitting the star icon. So you can add them in or remove them if you'd like to. You can refresh the list if you're new to an area. You can change it out to AM, FM, SiriusXM, etc. So you can see music, sports, news, talk, whatever the case may be. So I'm now on SiriusXM. If I hop back into FM for a second, you can seek this way if you'd like to. You can scan, and you can turn on the HD radio data. So that just means that the radio is streamed digitally, so you've got slightly better audio quality available in comparison. You can enter a station manually this way. So if you wanted to search for stations that way, you could, but you can also use the voice command prompt. 94.9 FM. And you can change out stations that way instead. So it's kind of neat. You can hit this little icon now as well in order to turn the display off, enter a station. There are station lists, a bunch of other options. You can delete presets. You can look at sound settings and so many other things. So station list is just going to pull up a different way that you can look at the stations. You can delete presets here as well, but let's hop back and go into our sound settings because there are a bunch of options here. So you've got your sound options here for surround sound. Do you want to change out your Bang & Olufsen sound system? If you had the upgraded system, if you didn't, that option wouldn't be there. You can adjust out the position as well. Do you want it driver focused? Do you want it focused on people in the back? You could recenter it as well. You can adjust the guidance there as well. And nothing exciting here. So these ones basically, so you've got your different guidance volumes, alerts and things like that. So all of the beeping and chiming that you get during navigation, you can adjust this out. Driver assistance settings. So there are a bunch of different options available here. With haptic warning, if something's going on, like you start to veer over into another lane without signaling, etc., you'll get a little bit of a steering wheel vibration, almost as if you're running over rumble pavement or there's something wrong with your alignment. There's nothing wrong. It's just that something's going on and it's giving you some haptic feedback, but you can disable that if you want to. Parking safety, driving safety priority, what these mean is that if you will have the forward sensing system and you start to go forward and there's an obstacle there or you're backing into a space, it'll essentially lower your radio volume in order for you to hear those beeps better. And then your connected devices for Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, you can adjust all of these settings. So what do you want your media volume to be at, your phone volume, ringtones, navigation, and things like that. So you have the flexibility of being able to adjust out all of these settings. It's pretty useful. Inside of SiriusXM, you'd have a few other options, but your presets along the bottom, you can see are a mix of AM, FM, SiriusXM as well. Hopping back home, we've got media that's available as well. So media, you've got a bunch of different options. So there's FM, AM, SiriusXM, sounds of nature. So if you'd prefer those relaxing, calming sounds instead, you've got that available as an option. But even more than that, so if we go into our media for a second here, and let's look through, you've got media sources, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, USB music, and USB video. So if you had a USB stick with MP3s in the middle there, just going to plug ourselves in and it'll take a second in order to read. There we go. And you can see there's USB music, but if we hit our media button there, that's going to let us go into USB video instead. So if you had video files on your USB stick, that would show up. Not every video format's available, but I mean, having the flexibility of being able to watch video while you're stopped is really, really cool. I love that Genesis has this available. And you can easily flip back through to USB music, audio, whatever the case may be. Really nice. You can hit here if you wanted to shuffle, repeat. You've got media sources and things like that available as well. There's HD radio data. Climate settings are available here too. So there are a boatload of climate settings down the center stack, and you can also adjust them out here. You can turn it into an auto mode, sync the passenger side to whatever the driver's side is, have it going to windshield face feet, different combinations of all of the above. And again, doing it for the front or for the rear climate. You can hit the icon here in order to turn the display off, look for your online manual, or there were some additional climate settings available too. So recirculate air, defog, defrost. There is technically a fragrance that's available inside of the ride as well. So if you had the fragrance in there, you could turn it on. And then down the middle here, there's also a button for you to be able to turn the fragrance on that way instead. There are different climate features. There's honestly nothing overly exciting here. You could turn in your seat warming balance. So if you wanted to have it more focused for the cushion, for the back, so like either your butt or your back, you've got that flexibility for both the driver and for the passenger seat. And on the note of the driver passenger seat, there's a little button on the outside of the driver's seat. And when you push that button, massage chair seats, where you can have it for your pelvis, waist, whole body, or turning it off. And then when you've got it turned on, you'd also have the flexibility of being able to say whether it's high intensity, how long you're going to go for as well. So there is a full massage chair seat available inside of this ride. It's really, really nice. And that's going to be the same for the driver passenger side. From here, hopping back home, swipe that across. Media, HD radio. There's a mood curator as well. So if you wanted to have it a little bit more relaxing, come out of a stressful day, you've got the flexibility of doing that. See, you can adjust your seat. So this is where we go into more seat settings. So you've got your driver passenger seat or the row in the back. So you'd have the flexibility through the front to be able to recline the seat. So if you wanted to, you could hit the rest button option there, and that's going to recline the seat for you. You can return it back to center there instead, and you can adjust out all of the seats right from the middle here. So if you wanted to adjust out your ErgoMotion seats, things like that. So these ones, you can actually fold the seats down, etc. There's a quiet mode available, and with quiet mode, what that's going to do is essentially lower the audio and only play through the front speakers. There's connected services, valet mode, there's a terrain mode that's available too, so you can see your vehicle pitch and roll. But down the middle here, there's a little rocker switch, and you'd be able to push in in order to be able to adjust into different terrain modes. So there's snow, mud, and sand mode as well. And these are going to play with traction control, stability control, and things like that. But you can see what's going on, how much each wheel is getting. So like which amount of power each wheel is getting. It's actually really neat. And then through the cluster screen, you can also see what mode you're in there. But pushing again, you can also change into different drive modes. So there are different drive modes, and then there are different terrain modes as well. It's actually neat. When you're in the sport drive mode, it's actually going to essentially use the seat bolsters in order to tighten up on your body. It's a really cool one. There are some notifications if they were available, and then there's also a digital owner's manual. So you could scan a QR code on your phone if you wanted to get access to the full manual. And then there are some quick guides as well. So if this video didn't help out, you'd be able to see different options available there too. And then the big one is going to be setup. And there are so many different options available here. First thing is going to be your vehicle settings. And you've got a number of different options here. So we're going to start off with our, let's go driving assistance and driving convenience. So you've got smart cruise control and a number of other features, but a big one here. So we've got warning methods where you can get your haptic warning, which we've already seen. And then you've got your cruise control options. So you've got smart cruise, and then you can adjust things out here. So your distance, acceleration, your vehicle's reaction speed, and things like that. There's highway driving assist. Lane change assist is a really cool one. So with that one, when you hit the turnstile, it's going to check to see if there's anybody beside you and automatically change lanes for you. With the highway speed change, if the speed, let's say, drops from 70 to 60 and it recognizes it from the speed sign, it's automatically going to adjust the speed for you there as well. The option for speed limit assist, I'm not a big fan of this one, but you can get an assist where it can actually limit your speed. You can get a warning or speed limit, just basic information inside of the cluster screen and the head-up display as well. So if you're a big fan of having these systems turned on, you can have it show up inside of the cluster screen and then inside of the head-up display if you'd like to. That one's going to come down to a matter of personal preference. Driver attention warning is interesting. So if you come down to a complete stop and the car in front of you starts driving and you haven't started moving, you'll get a little notification inside of the cluster telling you that you should start driving. With driving safety, forward safety, the vehicle can let you know if there's a potential collision going on. Blind spot view monitor is there as well as an option. So it's standard in most trim levels of the ride. There's also your blind spot safety. So if somebody enters the blind spot on either side of the vehicle, it's going to highlight red in order to let you know that there's somebody there. For parking safety, surround view monitor on, off, yay or nay. So the surround view monitor is going to be this guy. Oh, I love the way that looks. So you've got the flexibility of moving yourself around here into this neat little 360 view. You can just go front view or rear view or front view if you'd like to. You've got your dynamic guidelines there. So as you rotate the steering wheel, you can see across the board what direction you're facing. But I'm a big fan of that 360 camera. I love the way that Genesis has done this, but you've got different options. So rear safety, rear cross traffic safety. If you're backing up and somebody's coming perpendicular, it can let you know of a potential collision there as well. Driving safety, which we've seen all of these options. So that's one thing that you'll notice is that you can get to all of these different settings a few different ways if you'd like to. Hopping here gives you your basics for driving safety. Parking safety, which again, we've already seen. So next up is going to be drive mode. So you've got, again, a series of different modes available. So by using the little rocker switch down the middle here, you've got the flexibility of moving out to eco, comfort, sport, etc. But when you're in the My mode at the very bottom there, it's what do you want that mode to look like? So with your unique mode, you can adjust out the powertrain, the steering, and then the suspension. So you've got a comfort, which is more like your traditional steering wheel feel, versus sport and sport plus, which is more stiff. And that's the same thing with your sport suspension and things like that as well. From here, there is active sound design. So it's essentially going to play sound inside of the vehicle. So it essentially makes it sound a little bit more aggressive than the car actually is. You've got some additional climate settings, which we've already seen. There aren't really many exciting ones here. Climate features and things like that. Oh, I guess that big one would be locking the rear climate controls. So if people in the back seat are fighting over the climate, you can lock them out if you want to. And then the buttons there. So all of the buttons down the center here, do you want to get haptic feedback when you go to push? So when you go to increase, decrease the speed there, when you touch the heated ventilated seat option, you've got the flexibility of getting some sort of like a little haptic feedback. So a little bit of finger feedback as you push buttons there. Then we've already seen our warmer options there as well. Seat options, do you want to disable the alert that you get when you turn on your massage chair seat? And let's see, warm ventilation features and things like that. So again, you'll see the option of getting into these different features a few different ways. Seating easy entry exit is a neat one. So with this one enabled, what it's going to do is when you turn your vehicle off, it's going to back the seat up for you to get in and out a little bit easier. You can do that for the passenger seat and then your steering wheel access as well. So with that setting enabled, you turn the vehicle off, it's going to push the steering wheel forward in order for you to get in and out of the vehicle a little bit easier. Different options for light, including ambient light. And you can adjust the brightness, but more importantly, you can adjust the color. And the color here, it looks so good at night. It's subtle, but it's all throughout the vehicle. And they've done a great job. And there's even the flexibility of going to this little color wheel, and you can adjust out into whatever unique color that you'd like to instead. You can link the ambient light to your drive mode. So if you're sport mode, it'll go red. And then you can also dim it if it's a little bit too dark out as well. Your turn signal as a default is going to be 3 flashes, but you can have it set to 7, 5, 3, or 1. Welcome mirror light's really neat. So later on at night, you'll notice that there's going to be a little welcome mat with the Genesis logo. It looks so good. Headlight delay when you go to turn the vehicle off. Do the lamps stay on for 15 seconds? And then high beam assist is available here too. I recommend keeping this one turned on. Door liftgate gives you a few options. So when do you want to lock your door or unlock your door? So under which scenario? When you start to drive, when you go to shift, when you go to unlock the vehicle, do all doors become unlocked on a single push, or do you have to push twice for the doors to unlock? How fast or slow do you want the liftgate to open? What height do you want to open it at? So do you want to be full open, level 1, 2, 3, etc.? So you can see how high or low that's going to get, or you can select your own unique height instead. And then there are 2 exciting ones. So that's smart liftgate and remote window control. Let's hop outside and I'll show you how those ones work. You get a few feet away for a few seconds. But let's say if you've gone shopping, just walk up to the back end. Look at this. You could push the button there or lock on the fob in order to stop it. But that is a cool feature. I like it better than the foot activated because if the sensors are covered in snow or ice, it won't work. That's just a really useful feature overall. There's one other key fob trick that you can do, and that's rolling the windows down. So all you're going to do is push and hold the unlock button in order to start the process. If you take your finger off of the unlock button, it stops, but push and hold again in order to keep it going. That's really neat. I wish that the remote window control was up as well, but at least you can roll it down if you'd like to. There's a digital key available on top of that and smartphone as a key. Unfortunately, I can't show you that process because this is a press car. But if you want to see a Genesis video on how it's done, check down in the description of this video. And then there are some basic convenience settings. So rear occupant alert, if the second doors have been opened up, you go to turn the vehicle off. It's going to tell you inside of the cluster screen to check the back seats. Let's see, oil change reminder, phone charging indicator. So if you've got a phone on the wireless charger, you've got a few different options for how that's actually going to look as it's charging up. That's the basics of your vehicle settings. So there's a lot of information there, but it's all really straightforward at the same time. And then you've got your navigation settings here as well. So we've already seen a few of these settings. You've got your turn-by-turn directions, alerts, map, and things like that. Sound design, which we've already seen. So do you want to adjust out your guidance volumes, your radio noise, driver assistance volumes, and things like that? So you've got the flexibility of adjusting these out to make it perfect for you. Device connections, if you've got a phone connected, or changing your vehicle name. User profile, if you wanted to adjust out your individual profile or change a user. Voice recognition's a neat one too. So I definitely recommend reduce the number of prompts, and that's when you do a short button push on the steering wheel. So you'd be able to do things like change songs, you can change radio stations, navigate using your voice, and a number of other things. Reduce prompts means you won't get as many notifications. So you go to change a song, it'll just do it rather than telling you it's going to do it. Your screen theme and layout, you can just do automatic. So you can either lock it into white or black. But automatic means it's automatically going to flip you between that light mode or the black mode, just depending on how dark it is outside. But I love that black mode. Oh, that looks good. I know that's going to come down to a matter of personal preference, so you can lock it into the white background permanently, even at night, or the dark background if you really want it to. Your vehicle color. So when you use your different displays, like your 360 camera, what color do you want to use instead? It's actually kind of neat. You've got the flexibility to customize that. Your font size, how do you want it? Large, medium, or small, I guess I would say. Your cluster theme selection, which we've seen. The screensaver, so when you turn the screen off, what shows up? So there's nothing there as a default. You can have a digital clock, an analog clock show up instead. So when you go to turn the display off, different things show up. Blue light filters available as well, so later on at night, it's going to dim out the lighting in order to make it easier on your eyes. Let's see, video color and things like that. And connected services are available here. You do have to activate them in order to do it, but there are different things available. There's a Genesis app available that you can get on your phone to remote start and do a number of other things too. But I can't show you that one again because this is a press car, but if you want to see how that's done, check in the description of this video. And the other one is going to be your general settings. So you've got your basic software information, system information, but here we go, date and time. That's what we're looking for. So you've got the flexibility of setting the time automatically. So the vehicle determines what the actual time is. You can change it out. Daylight savings time, yay or nay. Do you want to be in 12 versus 24-hour mode as well? And you can't set the date and time because it's automatic. So if you deselect that, you could then select or set the date and time yourself manually instead. You can change out the language. So do you want to be in English, French, Spanish, or Korean? You can adjust the keyboard type. And then measurement units. So do you want your speed to be in either miles or kilometers? And that's going to adjust out what's going on inside of the cluster screen and in the head-up display. Do you want your temperature to be in either Celsius or Fahrenheit? And that's going to change what's going on down the center stack. You can adjust out your fuel economy. So when you're in miles, you'd be in miles per gallon, etc. So it's dynamic there. Your tire pressure, PSI, kPa, or bar. And then your torque unit, you want to be in either Nm or pound-feet instead. It's kind of neat. And then you've got media options. Media off at vehicle startup. So if you've got the volume cranked, you turn the car off, turn it back on again, it's going to mute it out instead, so there won't be any media playing. And then do you want to continue playing media for a few minutes after the vehicle's turned off? And then you've got reset options where you can delete the driver profile or reset all. So it's essentially going to fully wipe the screen in order to bring you back to a factory default instead. There's heated and ventilated first row seats inside of the ride. And I already mentioned the massage chair capability as well. I love the overall style here though. A nice gloss highlight. The tray there is fantastic. You've got two USB Type-C power points, so one for data, one for charging. There's a wireless charge pad and a 12-volt power point down here. You've got basics. So this dial, I should say, is going to let you move through the infotainment system. Go through all your different options there. There's a fingerprint scanner as well to lock things up. There's an auto hold setting, so if you're in drive, come down to a complete stop, take your foot off the brake, the car is not going to move. The shifter, it feels good. It's just a little rotary dial shifter, but that crystal look is fantastic. Look at this. I love the way that Genesis has done this. You can kind of slide your finger around. You can lock it into a side view if you wanted to, backup view, front view, etc. Really neat the way they've done this. There's a park sensing system that you can disable along with the auto hold set or the auto start stop. So that's the one that's going to turn off the engine if you stop for an extended period. You've got a little armrest here so you can button push in order to open up. There's a nice little tray that's removable to show you a bunch of storage down low. I like that highlight that follows all the way throughout the dash there as well. And then I mentioned the speakers. So there are two different speaker choices that are available. So it's either going to be a 12 or an 18 speaker audio system instead. We're going to listen to some audio here, but the audio that we're listening to is coming right out of the microphone here. So there's no post-processing done here whatsoever. Audio is so good inside of this ride. It helps out. It's an 18 speaker Bang & Olufsen audio system.
Step 1, wake up, brother, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2.
Love that. Okay, hold on. Let's go back through. Let's skip through part of the song and...
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
The audio inside of this car is so good. Oh, if you appreciate good audio, the upgraded speaker system here, I think you're going to absolutely love. The glove box inside the ride is fully lockable. Up overhead, there's an auto-dimming rear view mirror with a unique feature. So you could use the tab here in order to drop down into a fully digital rear view mirror instead. So it's not standard across the board, but it is available as an option. You can adjust the brightness if you want to. You can shift the image up or down as well. It's a pretty neat setting. From there, you've got a sunglasses holder, basic controls for your cabin light. There's an SOS mode, and then there's also full panoramic sunroof. Just opens things up so nicely. The profile inside of the coupe version of the ride is great. So hold on. You'll notice here that both are closing. So the actual window is closing, and so is the shade. So the button here is kind of neat. It's actually like a multi-function. So if you do a light push away either way, one way or the other, it's going to open or close the sunshade. But if you do a harder push, it's going to open up the shade, and then it's going to either open and close the roof as well. So it'll open and close them both. If you do a heavier push one way or the other. There's a nice suede headliner inside of this version. And then you've also got, there we go, little ticket receipt holder on the inside there. There's also a light up overhead. And this extends out to block all of the sun that might be hitting your face. The overall visibility is fantastic as well. Oh, this is nice. All right, hold on. Actually, let's go. Make sure my seat's set again. Perfect. All right. And inside. So you've got two different options for the vehicle. So it's either going to be a 5-seat configuration, and then there's the option for a 7. Inside of the coupe version, strictly looking at a 5-seat option. You've got sunshades along the back, that same highlight along the door with a speaker and basic controls there, along with some door storage. On the inside, you can power fold the seats here too. So if you need to get into the trunk without getting into the trunk, you've got that flexibility. You can adjust your seats this way. On top of that, so if you wanted to, you could slide the seat, like the whole bench, forwards or backwards, and you can recline. But with the driver's seat set up for myself being 6 feet tall, inside of the second row, I've got a good amount of knee space, foot space, and head space. With me sitting fully upright, it's tight, about a ½ inch of space there. But you've got the flexibility, giving yourself a little recline. And when you do that, I'd say it probably opens it up maybe an extra inch and change. So you're probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches of headspace roughly. So depending on how tall you are, you might be okay to sit back in the second row. There's a good amount of foot space and knee space there. Not much of a hump in the middle, but the middle seat is super uncomfortable. Yeah, and look at this. Like with me sitting fully upright in the middle seat, it's not happening. So if you've got shorter friends, family members, or kids, they're in the middle there. You've got all of the anchor points there, tether points behind the seats. There are some cup holders that are built right in, along with this little guy. Look at that. Nice little storage area there. All right, and highlights back here. You've got a little handle, hook, and a light, and that's the same on the driver's side. So handle, hook, and then a little light. From there, there's a little map pocket behind both the driver and the passenger side. And then here, you've got some basic vent controls along with all of your controls here too. So it's tri-zone climate control, so different for the driver passenger side in the first row. And then for the second row here, there's the option for heated and ventilated second row seats inside of this ride. You've got fan control and then a boatload of other controls here. You can toggle off the climate for the second row. Moving down, you're going to find a few USB Type-C power points, along with a traditional wall plug in the back too, that's rated for 150 watt. The rear end style of the GV80 Coupe is what sets it apart from the regular GV80 outside of the engine. I'm not going to say the regular GV80 looks boxy, but it doesn't have this style. It looks amazing. You're going to find LED tail lamps inside of the ride and a lot of technology back here too. So there's the reverse park sensing system, a backup camera, And then there's also a top-mounted camera as well, but I'll show you that one once we hop inside. You can tow inside of the GV80, and it doesn't matter which version you're in, so the 2.5 or any of the 3.5 options, you're maxing out at 6,000 pound towing capacity. So small boats, trailers, things like that, you'll have no issue inside of this ride. Getting into the trunk of the GV80 can be done so many different ways. There's a button to the left-hand side of the steering wheel. You can utilize the Keyfob to do it. Just above the backup camera, there's also a button there that you can push. And then you're also going to find the option for a smart trunk. So all you have to do, make sure you're locked, and then you have to get about 10 to 15 feet away for a few seconds. Walk up to the back end. Smart trunk. You do have to make sure that it's enabled through the infotainment system. So if you want to know how that's done, along with some other neat Keyfob tricks, you'll find a video down in the description. But the cargo area back here actually has a really good amount of space. There's nothing off to the left-hand side outside of a little light. Off to the right side, there's a light, but also a 12-volt power point, and then releases for the second row seats. But before I get there, this one has a little carpeted mat along the back. And lifting it up, you're going to find the little tire mobility kit, so the little inflator kit. And then just underneath that, there's also a teeny bit of storage as well. So no mini spare tire, but one of the nice things about being a Genesis owner is that you've got access to roadside assistance. And that's good for 5 years, and it's unlimited mileage. So if you need towing to a dealership, you need help with tire changing, fuel delivery, winching, lockout services, things like that, it is available. Just one of the added benefits of being a Genesis owner. There are different seating options available for the GV80. This one is the 5-seat configuration. There would be a 7-seat configuration option as well. But this one, folding down the second row seats, is power just along the side here. So you're just going to button push and hold for a second. And it's a 60-40 bench, so 60 along the driver, 40 along the passenger side. It's a slow drop in order to lower those seats, but it's fully power, which is nice. And there is a great amount of cargo space inside of this ride. And the measurements that you're looking at, specifically behind the first row, are going from right where the liftgate would close to just in behind the little console armrest between the first row seats. So at the driver's seat, passenger seat, where forwards or backwards, you gain or lose a little bit of extra space. Now, you can fold down the second row seats from the trunk. You can also easily fold down the second row seats from the second row instead. So if you don't need access to the cargo area, you can do it from the second row as well. You can raise them from the second row, and you can also raise them from the side here just by doing a simple button push. There is the option for a little cargo protector as well. So if you want to protect all of the valuables that you've got in the trunk, that's available as an option. And closing the trunk, be done just by pushing the button there. Filling up fuel inside of the GV80 is done along the driver's side. And one nice thing is that when the doors are locked, the fuel door is also locked. So you just have to unlock in order to open it up. It is a cap system, which is nice. And here's the thing, on the fuel door, it says premium fuel is recommended, but not required. So it's all in the language that Genesis uses. So minimum manufacturer's recommendation inside of the GV80 is technically just 87 octane. So you could just use regular fuel inside of this ride. If you want the best possible performance though, ideally you're using a 91, so that premium fuel, 91 octane will get you the best horsepower and torque inside of the ride. It's not necessary. The few times that I would definitely recommend it, if you're pulling a boat or if you're towing, so any sort of like heavy load for the vehicle, you're definitely going to want to use a premium fuel. But if you're on a budget, you could just get away with the regular 87. Your choice though, but premium is recommended. Oh, so smooth. Oh, the handling is fantastic. Love listening to that engine growl as well. There is going to be some active noise cancellation inside of the GV80 regardless of the trim level. But inside of the Coupe, or Coupe, it's really good. The active noise cancellation inside of this ride is fantastic. You hear a little bit of road noise, but it's fairly minimal. It's actually really nice. And one thing that I love about Genesis vehicles is that they've got a highway drive assist feature with a lane follow assist. So it's not fully self-driving, but if you lose focus for a few seconds, I think it's up to like 20, 30 seconds in my experience so far, it's going to keep you perfectly balanced in your lane. It's amazing. You eventually, you will get a message inside of the cluster screen saying that you've got to put your hands back on the steering wheel. But knowing that if you lose focus for a brief second, you're sneezing, kids are driving you nuts, you are pretty good from that perspective. You're only going to find the GV80 all-wheel drive, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And that's regardless of whether you're in the traditional body style or in the Coupe instead. But the handling is great. It's a lower car too, so that just leads to smooth. And here's the thing. This one has winter tires on right now, and it's handling that well. So good. So good. And then the turning radius here. Ooh. Good. Solid. Back up to speed. And that was everything you needed to know about the Genesis GV80. You can find all of the build details for this GV80 down in the description with links off to Genesis Canada and US. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone if you think they might find it helpful. And until I see you next time, take care. This one is the GV80 Coupe, or Coupe if you want to be a about it. Be done just by pushing the button there. Oh my God, it's so gold. Style-wise, the front end of the GV80 looks incredible. The way that Hyundai, I could technically not wrong. Oh, that's so nice. Oh, that feels so good right now. Oh, the heat from the engine. Gotta love Canadian weather.